Hi everyone, I'm Itai, Marketing Director at LoudEcho, and today I'm joined by Sapir Segal, Product Marketing Team Lead at Similarweb, and previously Product Marketing Lead at Fiverr. Sapir spent years helping some of the world's leading SaaS companies define their positioning, messaging, and go-to-market strategy. Today, we're asking a question every startup eventually faces. Why is positioning often harder than building a product? Sapir, let's start with the basics. What is positioning?
Okay, so I love this question. I think positioning, the way that I sort of understand and define it, is what is your product and how is it different from everything else in the market, so that a customer can easily make a decision and understand, okay, I want to decide that I want to buy this product over another product, because ultimately there's so much like abundance out there, and you want to find that one thing that is unique in the wider market. So in a nutshell, it's your key sort of differentiation in what problem you're solving, in what makes you unique and different. And it's also about finding your voice. So your positioning doesn't have to be what makes you different on, let's say, a product capability. It can also be your pricing, it can be your customer service, it can be a bunch of other things. But essentially, it's what makes you stand out, what makes you different in your competitive landscape.
Do you think it's actually possible to build a great product, but then fail just because of positioning?
Yes. I think that we are now also entering an era where there are more and more products that are trying to solve more niche kind of problems and use cases. And I think that really when you have this sort of crowded market and every category is like splitting into more categories and you have an abundance of products, I think that you really need to find your uniqueness and to really answer the why.
So let's use an example. If you would join a new company right now, what would be the first thing that you would look at?
So I think I'll talk from my experience. So every time I join a new company, a new startup, or even if I'm in the same company and there's a new product that I need to launch to the market, first of all, I want to understand what is that problem that this specific product is trying to solve. And, I'll give you an example. Right now, we're making a huge transition also at Similarweb. We're trying to be much more of a data first company, we're plugging into AI, and a lot of companies now, a lot of software companies are now transitioning from being software to being more AI first. But if everyone was to lead with, we're an AI first company, right? Then that's not really what makes you unique, right? That's everybody can use this tagline. Everyone can say that they are AI first, that they plug into any sort of AI tool. And so you think at one point that this is what makes you unique. You think this is your sort of angle, but actually you need to dig deeper. You need to really answer, okay, the so what? Okay, so I plug into AI, but what is that actually helping the customer achieve? What is the end outcome of that? And to do that, you really need to look outwards and inwards. So you need to look outwards at your competitors. You need to look at what everyone else is saying. You need to understand who their audience is, who their customers are, also how they look, like not just what they're saying, but how they look and feel and what is like the vibe that they're giving out. And then you need to also cross-reference that with your customers. You need to maybe run some interviews. You need to listen to sales calls. You need to really analyze what is it that your customers are wanting, and then find that kind of sweet spot.
Interesting. So in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest mistake or the biggest positioning mistake that startups and tech companies do?
So I think it's maybe two things. Again, from my sort of experience working with different founders, I think they sort of fall in love with the product. That's one thing. especially, founders that, maybe like they come from more product, maybe technical background. So they tend to really sort of love the product. But the product can't do all the talking. It can't do all the positioning. So you need to dig deeper. You need to understand what is it actually addressing, and not just the pain points, but I always like to say, like, if your product was to, your product or your brand, if it was to disappear one day, how would that make your customer feel? So what is it like? What is that gap that you're sort of addressing? So probably that, falling in love with your product, falling in love with the features, which can easily be replaced today. And the second thing is probably going too broad. Okay, so wanting to really meet all of the customer needs, all of the different ICPs. I can tell you, like, every time I'm trying to do ICP exercises and I'm trying to map who is the target audience, who are the target personas, it's really important for me to work with the general managers or the stakeholders to really define, like, the priority, who are the actual buyer personas and what are the key industries that we are selling to. And the broader that we go, the more diluted the message is. So we need to be very specific on the ICP so that the message can land well. It's like when you see an ad, right? You're in advertising, right? So you want for that message to really resonate, it needs to really be specific to that persona and to the challenge or whatever that you want to overcome for them. That's clear.
Let's talk about AI a little bit. In a world where AI now makes content and helps research and all those things, in your experience, has that made positioning easier or harder?
Okay. So I think I see this sometimes in my day-to-day where, you sort of ask Claude or you ask ChatGPT to kind of build you this positioning framework. And I think I would say it made it maybe not harder. I think it can give you the frameworks, but I think at the end of the day, it really requires you to listen to your customers, to listen. And that's okay. You can use AI to do the research and so on. But I think you really need to speak to your stakeholders, understand your customers, do all of that work. Whether you use AI to help you in the research process, that's great. But I think you still need to go through that process of breaking down the industry, the ICP, the personas, the competitive landscape, listening to customer calls, sitting with your sales team, hearing what they have to say. I think doing like the legwork, like the research, is without that, you cannot become an expert. And if you shortcut, if you just tell AI to kind of do all that research for you, it shows. Like, it shows in the message, it shows in whatever content you're going to create. It's going to sound like more fluff. And one thing that I really like to do, now I can tell you, like, we have all of our sales calls now in Claude. So if I used to have to listen to sales calls, and I used to actually, let's say even fast forward, I used to actually jump on sales calls and listen to how the customer is speaking and then take notes and then really listen to the nuances of like the messaging and why we're different and what's the pain point that they're saying and all of that. Okay, so the fast forward, I'm actually able to now analyze all of these sales calls, and I'm able to analyze, let's say, 50 sales calls from a specific industry and a specific persona and company type. And then I'm actually still asking the same questions. I'm still asking, how did the customer describe my product? Or what is the kind of pain point that I am addressing for them in their day-to-day? Or, if you had to tell me a day in a life, like, I'm still asking the same questions and I'm using the same sort of critical thinking to be able to, but you have to go through that process again. I think AI has made it more scalable, more efficient, but it hasn't taken away like the research part of building your positioning.
So it helps you with the research, but you can't neglect it.
You can't neglect it. And I would say the second part is you still need to test it, right? So you could build an amazing positioning kind of deck, with great messaging, and you are sort of, oh, this is amazing, this is exactly what I want to go to market with, you still need to test it. So if I go back to pre-AI, how I was testing it is I had like a user testing platform, and I was doing A/B testing on my landing pages, and I was running, campaigns on LinkedIn and social media and seeing what's resonating, and doing all kinds of like surveys. Okay, so now I can still do that. Maybe I can do it faster. I can do it cheaper. Because of AI, I can create multiple landing pages or multiple ads. But I still need to go through the process of testing and validating the messaging.
If you had to join a startup tomorrow, what would your first 30 days look like? What would be the things that you prioritize in the first month?
Okay, so I'll give you also an example. When I think I want to hear, I really like to interview stakeholders, and I really like to interview like the CEO, the co-founders, the C-levels, and to really hear what they think the unique value proposition is, what they think is the thing that makes that product or us unique. And I actually, through this exercise, I'm already able to spot the gaps. I'm able to spot the inconsistencies in how they think different, right? So one person is saying that it's whatever, customer service, another person saying the pricing, another person saying it's the data. Everyone has a different angle. And that on its own shows the inconsistency that we have not defined yet, our positioning. That shows like the root cause. Because if you as a company internally and all of your C-levels are not aligned on that one really important thing of what makes you different, how can you go to market? Like, how can you put it into creatives and so on? So first, I like to actually open up the forum, get them to submit their answers to me, tell me what they think is different, show them maybe that there is inconsistency. In most cases, I've already done this exercise multiple times. Usually there are gaps, but sometimes there is one thing they have in common. Like they are agreeing on, so it's my job to say, okay, here, you guys all agreed on whatever, X. I take this X, and then I go and do that with customers, with GTM, with sales. And then I want to hear like outside, external voices. And then I build something that is somewhere in the middle. Because I think our job in product marketing is not necessarily, yes, it is to define what is unique, but it's also trying to listen and take in all of the perspectives and find that, in the middle, like something in the middle that also the C-levels will agree with, our customers are already saying, our competitors are not saying, and then bring that together and package it nicely.
Sapir, thank you so much for being with us today. If there's one thing you would like our audience, founders and marketers to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
Okay, so I think if there's one thing, I would say to really, truly understand your ICP, your industry, the market in which your product exists, and always remember that your product doesn't exist in a silo. Customers come to you when they've already done more research, when they've already seen other brands that maybe look and sound or are saying the same thing. And in an age of like AI clutter and AI noise, I think you really need to stop, look what's out there, look at the context of what your customers are also seeing when they do a Google search, when they are asking AI, and that is surfacing in different answers, and really see, okay, how can I be different? And why, right? And always dig deeper, always keep asking the so what questions. Okay, you have the answer, go one step deeper, keep asking so what, until you kind of reach to an answer that will satisfy not just maybe you as a founder or as a marketer, but also will be clear and easy enough for customers to understand.
Got it. Sapir, thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching us. And I will see you next week.